Hey everybody, Andrew here. Just wanted to take a quick moment to do another shout out to Sid. Sid, thank you so much for not only being a longtime listener, but also providing some feedback and support with some of the things that we have in the works. So really appreciate that time you're able to give, because I know you have a lot going on. You're making a game among everything else that's going on in your world. So really appreciate that time and effort you've been giving us. And also, we really appreciate everyone else who is a listener. You guys mean so much to us. Glad you're finding that the content is helpful. And if you do, it would really mean a great deal if you could go out, write a review wherever you listen to this. That'd be very helpful. And also, if you're not already, just give us a follow, subscribe to the podcast. That's really helpful as well, too. So again, thank you, Sid, and thank you, everybody else, for being a part of this podcast. All right, let's get to the show. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas, gonna be your host today, and this is episode 125, where we're going to be talking about how to take the right approach with PR. Now, at some point, indie devs are going to need to take action with their PR, but it can often be a challenge. Writing only press releases isn't enough to get the attention of the press, and simply asking for coverage isn't going to work either. Thankfully, our guest today shares their expertise and experiences on how indie devs can be creative in their approach so their next PR campaign can create awareness and strengthen their brand. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey everyone, and we're back, and with us today we have Yohann. Yohann, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, no problem, man. All right, so Yohann is another fellow marketer, indie game marketer, who has a lot of experience with different areas and stuff. But Yohann, I'm actually going to just let you take the time here to introduce yourself. Give us some insight as far as what you do as an indie game marketer, and then also give us some personal insight to what you do outside of work.
All right. I will first start by what I do outside of, or what brings me to indie marketing.
Okay.
I'm a big game lover. I used to play chess when I was a child, and then I was really in love with a game called Blood Bowl. I don't know if you know it.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
All right. That's a Games Workshop game, which is about US football mixed with Lord of the Ring.
Oh, nice.
Kind of stuff. And, I used to play a lot and to invest myself in and really creating the community, because it was like 20 years ago. I was, doing tournaments all over Europe and even one in Florida. And I built the French community with a website and so on. So I was really gamer, and high competitive level at this moment. And in the same time, I was doing some study in not in IT, which is Cisco, Switch, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, yep.
And at some point, I was just fed up with all that. So I quit my job, and I wanted to find a project that would be more about me. So at this moment, I was discovering another game, which is poker. And I created a company about learning how to play poker for companies, for individual person, and also a shop in Paris, France. And after that, few experience in marketing also, and I finally came in Bordeaux. That's where I live, in Bordeaux, France. And I saw there was a lot of indie game studios around. So I said, why not putting my skills to help indie studios? And after a few meetings, I realized really that those people were very creative and they were very good at what they do, but not in marketing and communication most of the time. So there was really a good point to do there. And now it's gonna be like 3 or 4 years I'm doing this, and I'm doing well. I'm bringing all I can in terms of expertise in marketing, digital communication, and all which is public relation, press, and influencers for indie games, studios, and solo developers.
Okay, cool. I really like that story too because in a way, well, me personally, it resonates as well because it's kind of how I came about as well. That I had a passion for games, had a background in marketing and everything, and then finally just putting the two together and not only serving your purpose and everything, but also realizing that you can be a part of the community in that respect too. So it's really good to hear someone else have that type of a story because I think it says a lot where what your commitments are, and having that passion is a really big and important factor to it, especially when we're talking and working with the indie dev community.
Yeah.
So
I remember when I was in the studio, something like about 20 years still, and all our friends, we were just like, oh, this could be great to do something in gaming. And
yeah.
well, the studio wasn't that very much going to gaming, but when I started to work for indie games studio, I'll just say, okay, now it's done. 20 years after, I succeed to work for in the gaming industry, and it was a long way, but a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And there's also a lot of different occurrences too, where I hear people in the industry serving different jobs and titles and things like that, where their backgrounds are very diverse. For example, just if I can remember correctly, Victoria Tron from Kit Fox Games, I think originally she was like in medical. And then came, and now she's a community manager for them. So it's always great to hear those stories of how diverse backgrounds can come to the industry and really leverage those strengths that they had in their past
because
too.
The passion is a real field there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so you talked about what you do, but real quick, when you're not doing anything work related, what do you do, like to kind of unwind and whatnot?
When I'm not working, you mean?
Yep.
I'm just spending my time with my family.
Awesome.
I got two little daughters, 4 and 5, so it takes a lot of time.
Yep.
And we moved in Bordeaux a few years ago because we really want to be in that part of France where there's ocean, there's a lot of lakes, there's a lot of great place to be. So. Well, that's what we are doing, actually, meeting friends and going to the sea most of the time.
Awesome. Well, that's really good to hear. I mean, it's always good to have that downtime, spend time with family, and kind of just do your own thing on top of, what you love with games and stuff. So awesome, man. All right. Well, before we get into the meat of the conversation, we are going to have the Q Box round. And for those of you who are not familiar, this is just a series of random questions, that we ask as some icebreakers, just so you can get to learn Yohann a little bit more. So, Yohann, are you ready for the Q Box round?
I'm ready.
All right. Now, what is your favorite movie?
That's a hard question. I really love movies, and there's different things I really like in different movies. For example, for the moment, I really love JFK movie because the second time I saw it, I was very terrified. That's what it really means deeply. But I can really love, for example, another type of game, like another type of movie, The Game. I really love the way the movie is done about the rhythm. It's really slow at the beginning, and at the end, it's getting very speed. And I think that's a very genius way of doing a movie. Playing with the rhythm of the movie.
Yep.
I also love like the humor of the Coen brothers.
Okay. Yep.
It depends. It depends. So many factors. Can be an actor sometimes. Because I used to play poker too. There's a great movie called The Rounders.
Yep. Rounders,
It's
yep.
not, yeah, it's not that very famous, but if you look at the actors, they are just great. And all in the movie is real about poker. Well, once you
Yeah.
play a bit of poker, you just realize everything is real. So that makes like this little movie is just a gem, actually. And
Yeah.
it depends really of a lot of things. So I don't have one favorite, but many favorites.
Well, I'm sure sometime later we'll have to talk more about movies because you just listed some really good ones that I've been a fan of, like especially the game. Was it Kirk?
Yeah.
Not Kirk Doug. Michael
Yes,
Douglas, right?
Michael Douglas. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a great one. But anyways, moving on. But good picks there. Sharks or whales?
Once again, it depends. It's gotta be honest. When I talk with anybody, is mostly my first answer is it depends. Most of the time, I would say whales, except in poker. I prefer to be a shark.
All right, I like that analogy there. That's a good one. What's your favorite meal or food?
If I have one meal that I had to eat for the rest of my days, it would be bolognese pasta.
Ooh, bolognese pasta. Okay, nice. A person that inspires you.
Two types of person, to be honest. There's my parents, because now that I'm also a father, I just know, I just look back at my early years differently and the way my parents were also with me. So that inspires me. And for famous persons in history, I would say that John Fitzgerald Kennedy, for example, or all this area, they were great persons to be inspired in America at the time.
Good choices. And what are you playing right now?
For the moment, I'm just playing the game I'm working for. This is a small indie game which is called Isle of Spirits.
Okay.
This is to describe it, this is a casual Robinson Crusoe game, which is really relaxing and just the dev wanted to create a chill out way to play survival games. So it's quite nice. That's the game I'm playing at the moment.
So
I got fuses.
so you said it's Isle of
Yep.
Spirits, and it's a survival game, but it's also like kind of like chilled, laid back a little bit, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. That sounds really interesting. All right, I'll have to check that out sometime too. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So that is our Q Box round, folks. But now we're going to just dive in and get to the meat of the discussion here. And our topic today is how to take the right approach with PR. All right, so the kickoff question that I have for you today is, in general, from what I see out there, there's a lot of like the term PR in itself seems to get thrown around quite a bit. And I think it can come in the form of a lot of different types, like such as like communication and promotion. Now, knowing that it can encompass so much, what's a good way to clearly define what PR is and the areas that indie devs should focus on the most when they're considering it for their game?
PR means public relations, and from that definition, all you do is PR. But if you want to do professional way, you can divide it in the press relation. You can have the influencer marketing. You can have the video game shows and events because you're going to be in front of the public. And the last part, I would extend that to, as you say, the communication, but the digital communication. Because PR is an old word, but since like 10 years now, all you do on internet, it could be on Twitter, it can be on Facebook, on Reddit, whatever. This is public relation, actually, because you're talking to everyone and everyone is talking to everyone. So that makes also, I would say, part of public relation. But mainly, if you get to concentrate on two things, or three things, would be press, influencers, and events.
Okay. So, I mean, by nature, it's going to consist of a lot, but those are the three main categories that people would probably be most prominent and probably, want to focus on the most with. Are there any more? I'm guessing does it really vary in terms of what to focus on and stuff? Because there's probably a lot of other factors that kind of help decide that, correct?